Hi everyone, my name is Marissa Bozarth. I am the Museum Curator of History and the Grant Coordinator for the County History Partnership Program ReGrant, which is operated under the Burlington County Board of Chosen Freeholders. A little bit of background about our ReGrant program. We have begun our second round. Each round is 3 years running. So we are currently beginning our 5th year with the County History Partnership Program. The program is offered through the New Jersey Historical Commission, and then the county receives funds that are then reallocated to organizations who are to be awarded grants. Today I'm going to run through the applications with you so that you have a better idea of what is eligible, who is eligible, and then we'll have a question and answer session via Zoom later on in August. So the first question that usually comes up is, am I eligible, or is my organization eligible to apply for one of these CHIP grants, as we like to call them? Any nonprofit, government, or educational agency with a historic focus within Burlington County is eligible to apply for one of these grants. Right? We do ask in the grant application that you provide us proof of your nonprofit status, which would include your 501c3 form. Otherwise, as long as you have a historic focus that focuses strictly on Burlington County, you are eligible to receive the grant. There is no minimum requirements for your budget or for necessarily the type of organization you are. Any civic group with a historic focus is eligible. So what could you apply for? There are several grant categories. There is not much that is not eligible. The only thing that you really cannot apply for are capital expenses. We are unable to fund brick and mortar projects. We cannot fund construction. But pretty much everything else will fall under one of our grant categories. So they are divided into 2 separate areas: special project grants and general operating support grants. Special projects are written history based on primary sources, non-written historical works, publications, and artful history. Now, what exactly do those mean? Well, written history based on primary sources could be National Register nominations. That means the fees that go along with filing the nomination. It includes research that goes along with the nomination, or if you hire a consultant to help with that process. This also would include oral history projects. They could be written or they could be recorded. It also includes any biographies that you may be working on, or inventories or curatorial work. In the past, just for a few examples, we have had organizations who have received funding for oral history projects, interviewing veterans. We have also had an application for National Registry that has received funding as well to go towards the research, and for curatorial work, where they were able to purchase materials for cataloging and proper storage of their archives, along with digitization and a deaccessioning process, which sometimes is just as important as having a proper accession process. Non-written historical works. They refer to anything that is recorded, basically. So videos, if you want to put together any type of video production, whether it be a short documentary, an interview, a slideshow for your website, anything along those lines would constitute a video. Podcasts, anything that is being orally recorded to be put out to the public would count for that. Website work, A lot of organizations will apply for funding to go towards redevelopment of their websites. They'll hire a professional company to help with that and to help with marketing. That would count under non-written historical works. Also, self-guided tours. If you're going to do a recorded tour where you would give somebody a CD and a headset and let them go through your facility, that would be covered. Also, if you did it as QR codes, scan a QR code at a certain spot in your museum, that would count as well. Seminars and conferences, workshops. This would cover if you're going to be hosting any of those, if you're going to be putting them on, not so much attending them as creating them. Any lectures, if you want to bring in any lecturers or programming to your facility, they would be covered under non-written historical works as well as photography. So if you're going to do any, a photography exhibit, for example, or have a professional photographer come in to photograph your site and do an architectural project, that would be covered under non-written historical works. Publications are any printing that needs to be done, printing of brochures, tour guides. Those are things that come up frequently, especially for smaller organizations, and aren't always the cheapest to have done. Based on past years, the recommendation would be, if you are going to apply for printing of any type, have it be part of a larger project. So you would be creating a brochure to go along with a special exhibit, or a brochure for something new in your facility, or your brochure or your tour guide maybe hasn't been updated in 30 years. So you're going to put a lot of work into updating that. Or another publication idea is republication of important historical documents. If you have a first edition of something, or you have a deed that has been published somewhere in the past and you want to republish it somewhere, but it needs work and you need to pay in order to have it published, that would cover those expenses as well. Or a book. If you have a book that was written for your organization or about a topic that follows your mission, and it hasn't been republished, it has not been reprinted in several years, and you want to republish that document, you can do so under the publications category. Artful history refers to things like murals. If you're going to do a historic mural on the side of a building in your township, or a mural project, that would be considered artful history. Music as well. If you're going to do any performing arts along with your history project, the music, the murals, all of it would have to be historically based. So either be a historic composition or be tied into a performance about a historic topic relating back to Burlington County. But we would be able to pay for musicians. It would be able to cover purchasing sheet music. We could not purchase instruments, but it could purchase sheet music. We could also cover reenactments and performances. So if you're going to have a Civil War encampment, for example, it could help pay towards reenactors, advertising, really anything that goes along with that reenactment. Open hearth cooking, craft activities, things along those lines, and then performances as well. So if you would like to hire somebody from the American Theater in Philadelphia to come and portray a famous individual at your organization, that could be covered under performances as artful history. So that takes us to general operating support. In past years, for those of you who are watching who have applied in the past, general operating support has been, I don't want to say frowned upon, but they would prefer for you to use grant funds for projects and programs and use your own funding to keep your facility afloat. We don't want to get into the habit of offering general operating support on a yearly basis that if for some reason the funding should disappear, your organization would also not be able to survive. However, due to the fact that we are in 2021 applying for 2021 and the situation that we are in, we are being understanding of the fact that a lot of organizations have been closed. A lot of civic groups, even educational facilities, libraries, smaller historical organizations, even some of the larger ones, have not been able to operate this year. So that also means they have not been able to raise the funds that they typically would need in order to keep up their operating expenses. And we want to be able to support that. So general operating support is strongly recommended for 2021 if you are in the situation that you honestly would not be able to keep your doors open without the use of the funds. Now, what does general operating support encompass? It encompasses almost anything. So you could use it to pay administrative salaries. If you happen to have a secretary, a historian on your salary, you could use it to offset their salaries. You can also use it to pay utilities for your facility. You can use it to purchase office supplies, the basic needs to keep your organization afloat. You can use it to purchase copier paper. You can use it to buy ink. You can use stamps, envelopes, anything along those lines, pens, pencils, markers, any of that you may need to just do your everyday functions as an organization. What it will not cover is things like a printer, a computer. We cannot purchase large pieces of equipment through the regrant. You could purchase the things that go with it though. So if you have a printer that works fine, you can use general operating support funds to purchase ink and paper. You have a computer that works fine, but you can use certain software. You can use general operating support to purchase a software update, things along those lines. It will also cover technology expenses. So for example, right now, a lot of organizations had to resort to doing programming virtually, which could require a fee. You can use general operating support to pay those fees as well. Professional development. If somebody in your organization wants to take a course that is not part of a college degree, but they want to take a class in, one session in archiving, and it's going to cost them, $100. You can use that towards that as well. If they want to attend a conference, you can use general operating support to pay towards those things as well for professional development for anyone on your board. So a little bit more about expenses for both of these types of grants, the general operating support and the special projects. What is eligible exactly and what is not eligible always becomes a question. Okay, so eligible expenses are any reusable materials. If it could be used over and over again and does not necessarily have a lifespan, it can be counted as reusable material and is an eligible expense. Bringing in any scholars or professionals to help with a project is eligible. And any programming expenses are eligible. right? Hiring somebody to do a program, research going into doing the program, any expenses encompassed in that, marketing the program, all of that is eligible, right? What is not eligible? We cannot cover capital expenses, right? So like I said prior, we cannot pay for you to get a new roof on. We cannot award an application for, say, redoing their air conditioning. We cannot fund window replacements, things along those lines. Also, the re-grant cannot fund deficit reduction. If your organization happens to have any deficits, you cannot use the re-grant funds to pay that back. It can also not be used for entertaining. So fundraising purposes, this is where it mostly comes into play with entertaining, and fundraising is you can use the funds to help market something. You cannot use the funds to, say, purchase things to auction off. You can't use the funds to purchase food and drinks for a fundraiser or for a meeting, or say you're having a presentation and you want to have, snacks available. You cannot use the re-grant funds for the food, right? And you also cannot use it for scholarships. A lot of organizations offer scholarships to high school students, college students. The re-grant funds cannot be used towards that. That money has to come out of your general budget without the re-grant funds there. Right. The next piece is matching requirements. So this particular grant requires matching on a one-to-one basis. So that means for every dollar that you request, you have to be able to match it exactly. Right? The way that it is broken down, you can see here, 75% of your match must be in cash. 2/3 of that cash must be available before you begin your project. You have to be able to show in your application that you have that 2/3 of your match sitting in a bank account. 1/3 of it can be from anticipated revenue throughout the grant period. So if our grant is for 2021 and you are anticipating raising money in 2021, whether it be through fundraising or through donations or admissions to events, whatever it may be, you can use 1/3 of your 75% as that. Okay? And 25% of your match can be in kind. I'll get more into in kind on the next slide as to what qualifies and what does not. But an example of how this one-to-one could work, it gets a little confusing with the 2/3 and the 1/3 and the amounts. So just for example, imagine you request $5,000 from the grant. That would mean you have to have a $5,000 match. 75% of the 5,000 can be a cash match, which would come to $3,750. Right? The 2/3 of that has to be available before you begin your project. So out of the $5,000, 2,500 of it would have to be available before your project kicks off in the year. Right? 1/3 of it, or $1,250, could come from the revenue. Right? If you don't know that you're going to be able to make that revenue, you would have to have $3,750 cash match sitting there at the beginning of the year in order to qualify. Right? 25% of the 5,000 could be in-kind services. So $1,250 could work as in-kind. Okay, so to give you an example, if when you are going through your application and figuring out your matches, you're not sure how to break it down, you're not 100% sure about your numbers, you're not sure if something counts as in kind or how to figure out how much something is worth, just feel free to reach out to us. We get those questions every year. We'll be more than happy to help you work through the matching requirements, because it does get a little tedious in some instances. Right? So what qualifies as in kind? So in kind could be donated materials, but those materials that are donated have to go with the same project that you are applying for funds for. So if you are applying to do an exhibit, for example, and you are going to need research done for that exhibit, and you're going to need tons of paper, right, to create it, print it, everything, and somebody offers to donate rolls and rolls of paper to you, and somebody offers to donate ink for your printers, that is considered donated material. It goes along with your project. Now, if you are trying to do a project where, say, you're doing an exhibit and somebody offers to donate cleaning supplies to your organization, well, they don't have anything to do with each other. So you wouldn't be able to use cleaning supplies as your in-kind funds, right? Donated work or volunteers also counts. So say you need to have things printed, and you have a printer who is willing to donate the printing to your organization, or donate a portion of the printing to your organization. That would be in-kind funds. You would simply list the amount that it would cost if they did the printing work for you, and that's how you would know how much it counts for. Volunteer work, the hours that volunteers are putting in towards the project counts. So if you are doing, say you're doing a digitization project in-house, and volunteers are coming in and giving their time to that project specifically, their time counts as in-kind funds. So what you would have to do is figure out, if we hired somebody to do that job, what would we be paying them to do the job? That is the value of that volunteer's hours. Okay? That's how you know how much it is. And in certain cases, insurance also can count as in-kind funds. Some organizations have their insurance donated to their group through their townships. So a lot of it depends on where you are conducting your business or your project, and who owns the building and who is paying your insurance. So if your township says you have this building, it is yours to do everything, you pay the utilities and the upkeep, we pay the insurance, that is considered an in-kind, right? If you are paying your own insurance for your organization, that is not in-kind. That is an expense that you have. Okay, so again, if you're unsure of that, let us know. We'll help you figure out one way or the other if it counts or it doesn't. If something works as in-kind funds, or if it cannot be included in that, just let us know and we'll help you out with making that determination. So what is our review process once we get your application? So for fiscal year 2021, applications are due by Friday, September 25th of 2020. Okay. On your applications, you will see the address to send them to. They should be sent along with several copies, attention to myself, and mailed to the Burlington County Division of Parks at P.O. Box 6000, Mount Holly, New Jersey, 08060. And again, that is on your applications and on the guidelines, so you should have it readily available. Once your applications are received, they will be reviewed by staff to make sure that they are complete. Staff is not evaluating your application for funding necessarily. We will review it, make sure it is complete, make sure all the pieces are there. If something is missing, you will be notified and be given an extension. Not a very long one, but you will be given an extension to provide us with that missing piece. Okay. In mid-October, all of the applications will go to a panel for review. The panel has strict criteria that they are to be evaluating based off of. They will all meet in October to discuss and rate the applications. Everybody will be scored on a scale of 0 to 100 based on these 5 criteria: quality of excellence, audience engagement, attendance and quantitative impact, governance, and budget. So that may sound big and hefty. What exactly does all of that mean? Well, quality of experience is, does your project, program, or institution, organization have a system in place to ensure the highest quality of their work? Are you capable of putting out the best of the project or product that you are applying for? Okay. Does your application show that you have listened to multiple points of view and had varying opinions coming in? Is your project thought-provoking? Is it engaging to a mass audience? And is it innovative? Is it something unique? Is it something new to your organization? Is it something, creative that you have come up with as a way to reach more people or do something a little bit different? Right? Audience engagement, exactly what it sounds like. So number 1, do you understand who your audience is? Right? Is your program geared towards the kind of people who would want to attend a program or who live in your community? Is there a learning component of some sort? What will the audience gain from attending your program, coming to your facility, viewing your exhibit, reading your book, taking your tours? What is the audience going to get out of it? Right? And then also, how will it be continued? Once your audience leaves your facility, once they view your presentation, how will you continue to engage that audience after the fact? Or once they walk out the door, are they gone and you just hope they come back? Right? And also, what impact will you have on your audience? Right? Attendance and quantitative impact is, how do you anticipate reaching an audience? What are you going to do to make people aware that you're doing something? How are you going to let them know that you're there? How are you going to let them know that you're open, that you're holding a specific program, that your book has been published? How are you going to put it out there to the masses? We need to see what those plans are, and also how many people do you anticipate reaching? Right? So know your community, know your audience a little bit. You could find demographics just by Googling your township or surrounding townships to see who lives in your community specifically, what nationalities, what age brackets are the most prevalent, and go from there. Also, will your marketing be inclusive? Are you going to try to reach audiences that maybe you haven't reached in the past? A different age group, right? For example, a different audience. And how are you going to go about doing that? Are your advertisements only going to be in one location? Or are you going to have ads, posted as flyers, put out in newsletters, on your website, on social media? How are you going to do this? Governance is the next piece in these evaluations. So do you have good programming administration? Do you have a solid board of directors or board members for your group? Is the governance of your organization diverse and inclusive? Sometimes that's difficult. We understand that, but explain it. If you can explain why you are unable to do something based on either the type of organization you are, rules that have come down from, a level above you, it's out of your hands, explain it, okay? Is your governance and your governing board representative of the community you serve? So, for example, if you live in a demographic where there is a larger population of African Americans in your community, do you have African Americans on your board? You should, if that's the community you're trying to serve, okay? So, is your governing board representative of your community? The other one is there any type of assessment for your board? How are you making sure your board does what they're supposed to do? How are you making sure that things are kind of on the up and up with everybody? So one of the things that we ask for in the application is a list of all your board members along with their terms of service. So give us that information. You could attach bylaws, or you could simply explain it, whatever's works for you in your application, right? But show us that your governance knows what they're doing. And finally, the budget, which is probably the most complicated part for people, especially, it's a history grant. We are not mathematicians by any stretch of the imagination, but we try to keep the budget as simple as possible. We still need to know that you know your numbers, right? So that is evaluated by one, do you have a realistic grasp on your costs, right? Do the numbers make sense for what you're trying to do, right? Also, do you have other funding sources that needs to be listed, right? If you have other funding sources coming in, we need to know about that. The panel needs to know. And also, do you plan on showing that you're spending the money on this particular project or general operating support efficiently? Is it being allocated the proper way? So they are what the panel will be evaluating. After they are completed their evaluation process, their recommendations will be recorded and sent to the county's Board of Chosen Freeholders in November for final approval. The freeholders will then resolute yes or no based on those recommendations. Once that is returned to park staff, then we could notify organizations of their awards. So that typically happens, notifications will happen in 2021, sometime in February, where you will be notified. When you are notified of your award, you will also receive your comments and your score from those panel evaluations. So if you don't score as highly as you think you should have, you will know why. You will know what their train of thought was in order to improve it in the future, or question it. You also have the chance to, to appeal, which is explained in your application packet as well. So what happens if you are awarded a grant? Now we've been through the whole application process. We've gotten a letter in February saying you've been awarded X amount of dollars. What happens next? So the next step, when you receive your letter that says that you have been notified of an award, you will also receive a grant agreement. That is your contract with all of your instructions on how to play out the grant, what you're allowed to do, not allowed to do. That grant agreement will be signed by 3 individuals: the county administrator, myself, and the representative from your organization. So it'll be sent to you. It would need to be signed and returned within 30 days of receiving it to the Parks Department, along with your current insurance certificate. Once they are approved, you will receive a payment voucher. All of these things will be sent to the address and the email that is on your application. So make sure it is who you want receiving all of these things all the way through. Doesn't necessarily have to be the person that wrote it. If the person that writes it they wrote it because they're better qualified to write it, but somebody else should be getting that payment voucher, make sure we have their information, okay? Once you receive that payment voucher, you are to sign it and return it. Once it is returned, that is our cue to give you your first payment. Your first payment will be 75% of your entire award amount. Right? Your other 25%, that final 25 of your award, will be received upon receipt and approval of your final report. Okay? Final reports are not due until January of 2022. So you can turn them in sooner. If your project is complete in the fall of 2021, it's finished, go ahead and submit your final report. You will receive your 25% sooner. Right? If it is something that takes a year to complete, or it plays out over the course of a year, general operating support is going to take place over the course of a full year. So you have until sometime in January to turn in that final report. Then you will receive your other 25%. In the middle there is an interim report that is due in June of 2021, halfway through the year, to update us on your project. Is everything going the way that you planned it to be going, or are you having any difficulties making things work? All right. You will receive the interim report usually sometime in April, early May, and you'll receive the final report typically in November. Unless you request it sooner, we will make sure that we get it to you if you're finished. But typically we put it out around November for people to start working on it. Okay. So that is our grant in a nutshell. If you have questions, my contact information is right there on the screen. My email address is mbozarth@co.burlington.nj.us. Feel free to email me at any time with any questions. And also on August 17th at 2 p.m., we will be hosting a Q&A session for the County History Partnership Program. It will be done live on Zoom at that time. So if you have any questions specifically to this application process that you need answered, please come on that Zoom. A link will be sent to you prior to it. You should be expecting emails as well with the links with your applications and your guidelines. That will all be sent out via email. And if you would like to join the Zoom and you're watching this on our website, feel free to please send me an email. Let me know that your organization would like to participate in this grant round, and we will make sure that you get that Zoom link and we help you out in any way that we possibly can to get you through the grant process as smoothly and successfully as possible. Right? So that is the end of our workshop for today. I hope you all learned something from that. Again, hopefully we'll see you guys on August 17th for a question and answer. And feel free to contact me with any questions or concerns regarding the application process, and we'll work through it in any way that we can, right? So good luck and successful grant writing.